A stranger stood on my porch at midnight, soaked to the bone, her teeth chattering so loud I could hear it over the thunder. "Please," she said, her voice breaking. "My car went off the road. I have no phone. No idea where I am." I stared at her, dress clinging to her legs, hair matted to her face, eyes wide with a fear that cut through the rain, and knew my quiet life with my son would never be the same. My name is Owen Hale. I live in a tiny cottage on the edge of a rural town, where the roads wind through forests and neighbors wave from porches. My son, Finn, is 7. He is the reason I get up before dawn, the reason I work 2 jobs, the reason I have learned to find joy in burnt toast and bedtime stories. His mother left us 3 years ago, saying the weight of being poor and a parent was more than she could bear. I did not blame her. I just promised Finn he would never feel unwanted. We survive on odd jobs, fixing fences for farmers, delivering packages, stacking shelves at the general store after Finn falls asleep. Our cottage has 2 rooms, peeling wallpaper, and a heater that only works if you hit it just right. But it is ours. And it is safe. That night, the storm hit with a fury I had not seen in years. Rain hammered the roof, wind bent the trees outside, and lightning split the sky every few minutes. I sat on Finn's bed, watching him sleep, his small hand clutching a teddy bear I had mended twice. The calm in his face was my anchor. Then I saw movement through the rain-streaked window, a shadow stumbling along the dirt road. I thought it was an animal, a deer, or a fox, until the knocking started. Faint at first, then frantic, like someone was running from something terrible. I grabbed a flashlight and opened the door. The woman stumbled forward, nearly falling. I caught her arm, pulling her inside. The warmth of the cottage hit her like a wave, and she shuddered violently. "I have a towel," I said, leading her to the kitchen. "And an old sweatshirt. It will be too big, but it is dry." She nodded, too shaken to speak. I fetched the towel, frayed at the edges, the only one we owned, and a sweatshirt I had worn in high school. When she returned from the bathroom, her hair towel-dried, wearing my clothes, she looked smaller, softer. "I am Clara," she said. "Thank you for not turning me away." I made her tea, boiling water on the stove because the microwave had broken months ago. The kitchen was cluttered, dishes in the sink, Finn's crayon drawings taped to the fridge, a bag of flour open on the counter, but it was lived in. Clara's eyes drifted to a photo of Finn and me at the lake, our faces covered in ice cream. "Your son?" she asked. "Finn," I said, smiling. "He is everything." She nodded, sipping her tea. She told me she had been driving to a cabin, trying to escape the city, when the storm hit. Her GPS died. Her phone died. She lost control of her car on a muddy road, spun into a ditch, and walked for hours until she saw the light from our cottage. She did not mention family, or work, or why she needed to escape. I did not ask. Some stories are not ready to be told. That night, I gave her my bed. I laid a blanket on the couch, telling her she needed rest more than I did. "You are safe here," I said. She hesitated, then nodded. "No one has said that to me in a long time," she whispered. I sat on the couch, listening to the storm, until dawn broke. When I woke, the smell of pancakes filled the air. I walked into the kitchen to find Finn sitting on the counter, grinning, while Clara stirred batter in a chipped bowl. Flour dusted her cheeks. "He taught me your secret," she said, laughing. "Too much vanilla." Finn cheered, proud of himself. I watched them, a tightness in my chest that had not been there in years. Clara had grown up in wealth, she told me as we ate, about big houses and quiet dinners and parents who were never home. But in our messy kitchen, with flour on the floor and Finn's laughter echoing, she looked happier than I had ever seen her. By noon, the storm had passed. Clara's phone charged, and a mechanic agreed to tow her car. I offered to drive her to town, and she accepted. "My truck is old, rusted along the sides, but it runs." On the way, she asked about my life. I told her about Finn, about working 2 jobs, about the way I sometimes worry I am not enough. She did not pity me. She just said, "You are enough for him. That is all that matters." When we reached the mechanic's shop, she turned to me. "Can I come back?" she asked. "To thank you properly. To see Finn again." I said yes before I could think. She returned that evening, carrying a bag of groceries, fresh fruit, bread, Finn's favorite chocolate chip cookies. Finn dragged her to his room to show her his toy cars, and I stood in the doorway, watching. Clara knelt on the floor, listening as he rambled about race tracks and superheroes, her full attention on him. That night, we sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky pink and orange. Finn fell asleep in my lap, his head on my chest. Clara sat beside me, her shoulder brushing mine. I have not felt this at peace in years, she said softly. Wealth does not fix loneliness. It just makes it quieter. I nodded. I knew that well. Over the next month, Clara visited every weekend. She brought groceries. She helped Finn with his homework. She even fixed the heater that had been broken for months, saying she had watched her father's handyman work as a child. She did not show up in fancy clothes anymore. She wore jeans and flannel shirts, her hair in a loose braid. She fit into our life like she had always been there. Finn started asking when Aunt Clara would come back, and my heart ached with a hope I had buried long ago. I found myself looking forward to her visits, to the way she laughed at my bad jokes, to the way she and Finn bonded over silly games. I started to think maybe I could have more than survival. Maybe I could have happiness. Then her father came. A black luxury car pulled up to our cottage one Saturday afternoon, a man in a tailored suit stepping out. Clara's face paled when she saw him. "Dad," she said, her voice tight. The man, tall, gray-haired, with a presence that filled the small yard, nodded at her, then turned to me. "Owen Hale," he said, his tone formal. "I am Julian Cross, Clara's father." He did not offer his hand. He just stared at our cottage, his eyes taking in the peeling paint, the rusted truck, the toys scattered in the yard. "Clara tells me you have been kind to her," he said. "I want to repay you. Name a number. Any number." I felt my jaw tighten. "I did not help her for money," I said. Julian smiled, a cold, tight thing. "Everyone has a price. You work 2 jobs to support a child. Do not pretend you would not welcome the help." Clara stepped between us. "Dad, stop," she said. "This is not about money. This is about you throwing away your future," Julian interrupted. "You belong in the city. With people who understand your world. Not here, with this." I heard every word. That night, after Clara left, I sat on the porch for hours. Finn was asleep, and the cottage was quiet. I thought about Julian's words. He was right. Clara belonged to a world of wealth and opportunity. I belonged to a world of late nights and tight budgets. I could not give her the life she was used to. I could not ask her to choose between her family and a man who could barely pay his bills. So I packed her favorite mug, the chipped one she used every time she visited, and wrote her a note. "You brought light to our cottage, Clara. Light that was dim before you came. But some light is meant to shine briefly, to remind us we are not alone. Do not let us hold you back. Go find the life you deserve. Finn and I will be okay." I left the mug and the note on the porch, then woke Finn early the next morning. We packed a few bags, got in the truck, and drove to my sister's house 2 towns away. I did not look back. Months passed. Finn asked about Clara sometimes, and I told him she had gone back to the city to follow her dreams. He nodded, accepting it, but his eyes would grow sad. I worked, I cared for Finn, I tried to forget the way Clara's laugh sounded, the way she looked at Finn like he was the most important person in the world. But I could not. One afternoon, I took Finn to a community center in the next town. They were collecting donations for families in need, and I had bags of clothes Finn had outgrown. As we walked in, a familiar laugh stopped me in my tracks. Finn's face lit up. "Clara," he shouted, running forward. I looked up. There she was. Standing by a table of donated books, wearing a simple dress, her hair in the same loose braid. She turned, and when she saw Finn, her face crumpled. She knelt, catching him in her arms. Then her eyes met mine. Time stopped. The noise of the community center faded. It was just us, standing across a room, the same spark between us that had been there the night of the storm. "I looked for you," she said, her voice wobbly, as I walked toward her. "Everywhere. I even asked the mechanic. He said you had moved, but he did not know where." I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. "My dad told me about the note," she said. He felt terrible. He said he had never seen someone choose kindness over their own happiness. He started a foundation for single parents. "In your name." I blinked, surprised. "I did not want to leave," I said. "I thought I was doing the right thing." Clara shook her head, stepping closer. The right thing would have been to let me choose. I do not want the city. I do not want wealth. I want this. You. Finn. This messy, beautiful life. Finn tugged on my hand. Daddy, can Clara come home with us? He asked. I looked at Clara, at the hope in her eyes, at the way Finn clung to her hand. I thought about the storm, about the stranger on the porch, about the way love can find you in the darkest moments. Yes, I said. She can come home. That night, we drove back to our cottage. The heater worked, thanks to Clara. The wallpaper was still peeling, the dishes still in the sink, but it felt fuller than ever. We ate dinner together, pasta, Finn's favorite, and talked until midnight. Clara told me she had quit her job in the city, that she had told her father she would never be happy there. Julian had apologized, saying he just wanted what was best for her. He even offered to help fix up the cottage, but I told him we would do it ourselves. Some things are better when earned. We do not have much. We still struggle to pay bills. Finn still spills juice on the couch. The truck still coughs when it starts. But we have each other. We have laughter. We have the kind of love that does not care about bank accounts or social status. It cares about showing up. About mending teddy bears. About choosing each other, even when it is hard. That stormy night, a stranger knocked on my door. I opened it, not knowing it would lead to home. Love is not about grand gestures or perfect lives. It is about opening your heart to the unknown. It is about finding family in the most unexpected places. It is about the storm that breaks you, and the person who helps you put the pieces back together. If this story touched your heart, if you believe kindness can change lives and love knows no boundaries, like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. We share emotional tales of hope, chosen family, and the magic of opening your door to strangers. Comment below, kindness wins, if you would open your door to someone in need. We want to hear your story.